Chapter 6. The first bath is the hardest. Alternate, consent is a verb. The problem with being injured was not the pain. Juliet could handle pain. Pain was familiar. Pain was a language she spoke fluently and without complaint. Pain obeyed rules. It flared, it faded. It could be measured, endured, ignored if necessary. The problem was everything else. She was stiffening up bad. Just hours had passed, but she felt like hell. The way her shoulder refused to cooperate when she tried to pull her shirt over her head. The way her fingers went clumsy when she reached behind her back. The way exhaustion crept up behind her knees and made standing feel like a negotiation she was losing. The cabin was quiet, the kind of quiet that made small sounds feel intrusive. The kettle clicked softly as it cooled. The wood stove sighed. Outside, Upper Quinsam Lake lay still and dark, the last of the afternoon light thinning to gray. Juliet stood in the bathroom doorway and stared at the tub. It was old, porcelain chipped at the edges, a clawfoot that had seen better decades, perfectly functional, entirely unhelpful. She exhaled slowly. Elias was chopping vegetables at the counter when she spoke.
I can't,
she said. He looked up immediately, knife stilled in his hand.
Can't what?
do this alone.
She gestured vaguely with her good arm.
I tried. I'm so sore I can't even undress myself.
He didn't move closer, didn't assume, didn't fill the silence.
How can I help?
He asked instead, he said. The question hit her harder than she expected. Juliet swallowed. Her throat felt tight, unfamiliar with this particular kind of choice.
I need help washing. Just with my arm. I can't lift it properly, and it hurts to move too much, or bend or twist.
She trailed off.
Okay.
Elias said. Just that. No shift in tone. No flicker of something else behind his eyes. Just acceptance. He set the knife down carefully and wiped his hands on a towel. When he turned back to her, he stopped a deliberate distance away.
Before anything,
He said,
we set rules.
Juliet nodded. She wrapped her fingers around the doorframe, grounding herself.
I don't touch you without asking.
He continued.
You can stop me at any time, for any reason. No explanations required.
Her chest tightened.
You stay clothed as much as you want.
He added.
I look away if you ask. I leave if you ask.
She hesitated.
And if I freeze?
I'll check in,
He said.
and if you don't answer, I stop.
The clarity of it, clean, structured, non-negotiable, made something inside her loosen that she hadn't realized was clenched.
Okay.
She said quietly. The bathwater ran slowly, steam curling up to fog the mirror. Enigma's sadness drifted from the radio in the other room, distant and pulsing, the rhythm oddly grounding rather than sensual. Juliet sat on the edge of the tub, stripped down to a tank top and underwear, her injured arm held awkwardly against her body. She felt exposed anyway. Vulnerability had nothing to do with skin. Elias stayed near the door.
May I help you remove the shirt?
He asked. She closed her eyes.
Yes.
He moved only when she nodded again, fingers careful, guiding the fabric up and over her head without brushing skin more than necessary. His touch still burned her. When her breath hitched, he paused immediately.
You okay?
He asked.
Yes.
She said after a moment.
Just keep going.
Every motion was slow, deliberate, negotiated. The panties went next, Elias steadying her. When it came time to lower herself into the tub, her shoulder flared sharply, a hiss escaping her before she could stop it. Elias steadied her with one hand at her elbow. Nothing more, exactly where he'd asked permission to be. She gripped the edge of the tub with her good hand, knuckles whitening.
I've got you.
He said, not as a claim, but as information. Once she was settled, water lapping softly against her legs, he turned his back.
Tell me when you're ready.
He said. She stared at the tiles, breath shallow, then nodded even though he couldn't see it.
Okay.
He turned, knelt beside the tub, eyes focused deliberately on her face unless she directed him otherwise. He took the washcloth only after asking. He cleaned her injured arm with a gentleness that bordered on reverence, careful not to jostle the joint, checking in constantly.
Pressure okay?
Yes.
Still okay?
Yes.
Each yes cost her something. Each yes gave something back. She was acutely aware of him, of the restraint in his posture, the tension he never let spill into his hands. She knew enough about men to recognize the effort it took, the discipline of choosing not to let intimacy turn into something else. Even as he washed her breasts, hands moving with purpose, not intent, he maintained his self-control. She thought there may have been a tremor in his hands when he washed her mound. An instant. No more. It stirred something dangerous in her, something warm and unfamiliar. He felt it too. Elias kept his breathing slow, his focus narrow. This was not about want. This was about trust. About proving, again and again, that safety did not come with strings. When he finished, he set the cloth aside and stood without looking at her body.
All done,
He said.
I'll step out while you dry off.
Wait.
She said, before she could talk herself out of it. He froze.
Yes?
Stay.
She said.
Just turn away.
He did, immediately. Juliet leaned back against the tub, eyes closing as the last of the tension drained from her body, leaving her wrung out and strangely lighter. When she was dressed again and back in the main room, Elias handed her a mug of tea like it was a ritual, not a courtesy. Their fingers brushed. Both of them noticed. Neither pretended they hadn't. No one crossed the line. Not tonight. But something had shifted, subtle, irrevocable. Intimacy, she realized, was not about what was taken. It was about what was withheld. Chapter 7. Sharing a bed without crossing an international border. Alternate.
The longest 8 hours of my life.
The bed was not subtle. It was narrow enough to make negotiation unavoidable and old enough to creak in protest at the slightest shift of weight. The quilt smelled faintly of cedar and clean cotton, folded back with an optimism neither of them shared. Juliet stood at the foot of it, freshly bathed, hair damp and curling at the ends. She wore an oversized t-shirt Elias had offered without comment and soft pants she'd found in her overnight bag. She looked smaller like this, younger, not fragile, never that, but stripped of her armor in a way that felt more dangerous than any alleyway. Elias lingered near the door, as if the room itself required permission. Van Morrison's Into the Mystic played low from the radio on the kitchen counter, drifting in through the open doorway. The music softened the space, made the air feel thicker, charged with something neither of them was ready to name.
We can take turns.
Juliet said, practical reflex kicking in.
I'll sleep first. You later.
He shook his head immediately.
You need rest. Proper rest.
So do you.
I'll manage.
The familiar impulse rose in her, the need to barter, to compromise herself smaller so someone else wouldn't have to. She felt it and stopped it mid-breath.
There's one bed.
She said instead.
We're adults. We can share it.
Elias studied her face carefully, searching for something. Hesitation, obligation, a flicker of the old transactional reflex he'd already learned to watch for.
Only if you're sure.
He said.
I am.
She was surprised to find that she meant it. They prepared for sleep like diplomats negotiating a ceasefire. Lights off. Radio volume lowered but not silenced. Pillows arranged with deliberate neutrality. Elias changed in the bathroom and emerged in a plain t-shirt and sleep pants, barefoot, hair still damp at the ends. Neither of them looked at the bed as they approached it. Juliet climbed in first, carefully settling onto her side, injured arm supported by a pillow Elias handed her without being asked. She lay facing the window, the dark lake barely visible beyond the glass. Elias lay down beside her, rigid as a man expecting impact. The mattress dipped. The distance between them shrank to something measured in inches rather than feet. Juliet was suddenly acutely aware of everything. The warmth of his body, the sound of his breathing, the way his arm lay close enough that she could feel the heat of it without touching, the smell of soap and wood smoke and something unmistakably him. She kept her eyes closed. Her body cataloged him anyway. The music shifted as the record ended, the radio clicking softly before rolling into Van Morrison's Crazy Love. Slower, softer. A mistake, probably, but neither of them moved to change it. Juliet's breathing evened out gradually, exhaustion claiming her with a decisiveness she hadn't anticipated. The adrenaline of the last 48 hours finally released its grip, leaving her heavy and warm and unguarded. She slept. Elias did not. He lay on his back, staring at the dark ceiling, every nerve ending lit up like a warning system. His body was acutely, painfully aware of hers, of how close she was, of how easily he could reach her if he allowed himself to move. He did not move. He dared not. Desire sat in him like pressure behind the eyes. Not explosive, not urgent, just constant, persistent. A low-grade ache that had nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with proximity and restraint. He acknowledged it without judgment. Then he set it aside. This was not a test she was meant to fail. The radio drifted on, the playlist turning contemplative. Leonard Cohen's Suzanne, low and intimate, followed by Nick Drake's Northern Sky. The music wrapped the room in something tender and unresolved. At some point in the night, Juliet shifted in her sleep, a soft sound escaping her throat as pain flared briefly in her shoulder. Without opening her eyes, she drifted closer, instinct seeking warmth and safety. Her back brushed his arm. Elias froze. He closed his eyes. He could smell her clean scent, her wet hair. He did not touch her. Instead, he adjusted his breathing to match hers, grounding himself in the simple reality of the moment. She was safe. She was sleeping. She trusted him. That mattered more than anything his body wanted. Hours passed. When dawn finally thinned the darkness, pale light slipping through the window, Elias was still awake, aching, restrained, and quietly resolute. Juliet slept on, peaceful. The border held. Chapter 8. Coffee is a ritual, not a beverage. Alternate.
How we do mornings now.
Morning arrived without asking permission. It slipped into the cabin on Upper Quinsam quietly, pale light pressing itself through the thin curtains and settling over the room in shades of lake gray and cedar brown. The cabin responded with soft sounds. Wood shifting, the slow exhale of a place that had stood long enough to know mornings came whether you were ready or not. Juliet woke in layers. First sensation, the steady ache in her shoulder, no sharper than it had been the night before, held in check by careful positioning and the memory of Elias's hands moving with deliberate gentleness. His hands had been so gentle checking her injury, and then again when he helped in the bath. She tried to focus on that feeling. Second, warmth. She froze, not in panic, not quite, but in awareness. Elias lay behind her, far enough away to be respectful, close enough that she could feel the quiet, controlled rhythm of his breathing against the air between them. The quilt lay neatly tucked, nothing tangled, nothing claimed. He was awake. She knew it instantly. There was a difference between sleeping breath and the kind of stillness that came from someone choosing not to move. Juliet stayed exactly where she was, letting the moment exist without interrogation. After a while, how long she couldn't have said, Elias shifted. Slowly, carefully. He sat up on the edge of the bed, running a hand once through his hair as if grounding himself before standing.
I'll make coffee.
He said softly. Not an assumption, not an obligation. An offer. Juliet nodded, eyes still half closed.
Okay.
He didn't linger. He didn't ask if she needed anything else. He simply moved out into the main room, closing the bedroom door with a quiet click that said, "Rest if you want to," rather than "I'm leaving." Juliet lay there for a few minutes after, listening. The sound of water filling the kettle, the scrape of a chair moving, the faint, familiar click of a radio dial turning, once, twice, until it found something Elias approved of. Then music, low and deliberate. Miles Davis. Kinda blue. So what? It filled the cabin the way steam fills a room, gradually, inevitably, until it became part of the air itself. Juliet pushed herself upright and padded into the main space, bare feet finding the cool wood floor. Elias stood at the counter, sleeves pushed up, moving with unhurried precision. He ground coffee beans by hand, the motion rhythmic and practiced, like this was not preparation for the day but the day itself beginning. 3 cats had assembled. Max, the orange and white male, sat squarely on the table as if he had been appointed supervisor. His tail flicked once, lazily, eyes half-lidded in approval or judgment. It was difficult to tell which. Trixie, black and white and sleek, wove figure eights around Elias's ankles with surgical accuracy, occasionally glancing up at him as if to remind him she existed. Nova, the tortoiseshell, had claimed the armchair by the window and regarded the entire scene with an expression that suggested she was humoring all of them. Elias glanced up when Juliet entered.
Morning,
He said.
Morning.
No awkward pause followed. No reevaluation of the night. It had happened. It was done. It required no commentary. Freddie Freeloader slid into place as the kettle began to steam. Juliet leaned against the counter, watching him. There was something deeply steady about the way he moved. No rush, no wasted motion. This was not the posture of someone waiting for the next emergency. It was the opposite of how she had lived for years. Coffee bloomed into the air. Dark, bitter, real. Elias poured it into mismatched mugs that looked like they'd been collected over time rather than purchased with intent. He handed one to Juliet with care, making sure it went into her uninjured hand.
Thank you.
She said. He inclined his head once, acknowledging the exchange without ceremony. They sat at the table. Max allowed Juliet to scratch under his chin as if this were a generous concession. Trixie jumped onto Elias's lap and immediately settled, satisfied. Nova did not move, because Nova never moved unless it was her idea. Blue and green. Juliet took her first sip and felt something inside her shift. Subtle, but undeniable. Not relief exactly. Permission. She had forgotten what it was like to sit without scanning, without rehearsing exits or preparing for interruption. The repetition mattered. The same table, the same music, the same deliberate quiet.
I used to think mornings were just something to survive.
Juliet said, the words slipping out before she could overthink them. Elias didn't turn to look at her, but he listened fully.
what changed?
She considered it.
I stopped sleeping.
He nodded once, as if that accounted for everything. They drank in silence. When her mug emptied, Elias refilled it without asking. When the album turned over, he let it play. All blues, then flamenco sketches. The music stretching, unhurried, filling every corner of the cabin without demanding attention. Eventually, Elias stood and set his mug in the sink.
Want to walk?
He asked.
Just to the lake. If you're up to it.
Juliet tested her shoulder carefully. Pain flared, then settled. Manageable, contained,
Yes,
she said.
I do.
They stepped outside into the cool, clean air. The scent of damp earth and cedar wrapped around them. The lake visible through the trees, smooth and pale beneath the morning sky. They walked side by side, not touching, their pace falling into step without discussion. Juliet breathed. With each step, something inside her loosened, not dramatically, not all at once, but through repetition, through predictability, through the presence beside her that asked for nothing and took nothing. Healing, she realized, did not arrive as revelation. It arrived as ritual. They stopped at the water's edge, standing shoulder to shoulder, watching light slide across the surface. Behind them, through the open cabin door, Miles Davis played on, steady, cool, patient. This, Juliet thought, could be how we do mornings now. And for the first time in a long while, the idea didn't feel dangerous.